We have been in discussions with Jaspers and DG Regio in order to reach an agreement on how that will be done, and this is underway. The reason for my presentation here is to make sure that you understand well what the Connecting Europe facility is about and how that might relate to your work, in particular when it comes to the activity that Jaspers may provide for certain projects in your country. I will try to highlight all the time during my presentation how the similarities, differences, and complementarities between the Connecting Europe facility and the European Structural and Investment Funds with which you are mostly dealing with. The Connecting Europe facility, like the ESI funds, it's a financing instrument to support EU policy objectives and priorities. It does so in 3 areas. In transport, energy, and telecommunications, and in particular with relation to the establishment of trans-European transport networks in these fields. Well, I'm going to because the Connecting Europe Facility regulation is directly related to the TEN-T guidelines, because it is financing only projects on the TEN-T and priorities on related to the development of this network. I will first go through briefly to what the TEN-T guidelines and the maps are, and then we will go through the main elements of the Connecting Europe Facility. The TEN-T guidelines include maps of the TEN-T infrastructure, Trans-European Transport Network infrastructure, standards that need to be realized on this infrastructure, as well as deadlines by the time at which this infrastructure needs to be realized with the standards that are specified. Here on this map, you see the core network of the Trans-European Transport Network that is aimed to cover as comprehensively as possible the entire Europe, covering the strategically most important traffic flows. As a matter of fact, the Trans-European Transport Network is comprised of 2 layers. The comprehensive layer, which is meant to ensure the accessibility of all regions in Europe to the Trans-European network, and then the second layer, the core network, part of the comprehensive network, carrying the strategically most important traffic flows along the Trans-European network. Here it just shows to put the specific map of Greece as our hosts, and I will use it as an example. The thinner lines on the map represent the comprehensive network. The thicker lines on the map represent the core network. Where you have dotted lines, that means that the infrastructure is not yet completed. It's not yet built, so it's planned but not built. Where you have continuous lines accompanied by dotted lines, means that the infrastructure is there, but it's not yet at the standards that have been specified in the TEN-T guidelines. Where the lines are full, that means that the infrastructure is there, completed at the standards that are required. We have standards for the comprehensive network and standards for the core network, where the core network imposes further standards as opposed to the comprehensive network. We have deadlines for 2030 for the realization of the core network and 2050 for the realization of the comprehensive network. The TEN-T guidelines has maps and specified standards for all transport modes. Here you have the road. On the previous slides you had the railways. There are also components of the Trans-European transport network are also the ports, the airports, and railroad terminals, all with comprehensive and core network components. I will not go into these standards. They are just here summarized on the slides. You can find them in the TEN-T guidelines regulation, as well as if you need just a quick overview, you can have the presentation. Ports and all other main means of transport. What is also very important to remind about the TEN-T guidelines is that we have identified 9 corridors along the core network where most of the efforts are going to be focused in order to realize the infrastructure. That is very important, both in terms of financing at EU level, but also of efforts that we are trying to be made also at national level. The role of the corridors is therefore to try and coordinate investments both at EU and national level under the guidance of a European coordinator and on the basis of a work plan that right now the European coordinators are in the process of finalizing in order to establish what are the main investment needs along the corridor and what would be the next steps to undertake in order to fill in those gaps. These work plans will be submitted to the member states at the end of the month, actually by the 22nd of December. There is a deadline. And the ministry will consider them. They will send back comments, and then they will constitute the basis for future work on the corridors. Now, the Connecting Europe facility, it has an overall budget of 33.2 billion for all the 3 sectors, with the transport sector having the highest share, 26.2 billion, which also include 11.3 billion that have been transferred from the Cohesion Fund. The funds can be awarded in the form of grants, which is the bulk of it, or in the form of financial instruments for a total of up to 10% of the transport CEF budget. It's here, but just for you to put it into context, the Connecting Europe facility obviously is not the only EU financing instruments for the TEN-T. It's the main one, at least for all the 28 member states. However, in your countries, you also have access to the Cohesion Fund and the European Regional Development Fund, which with an estimate of almost 60 billion euros. There are also the loans from the European Investment Bank and the leftovers from the previous financial period from the structural funds. It is very important to know that the Connecting Europe facility financing will concentrate on a number of very clear priorities. We talk about, in particular, on investments in rail and in the waterways, as well as the multimodal platforms that ensure the connection between the various modes. We are in particular focusing on missing links and bottlenecks, particularly on the cross-border sections. And we are also looking to fund with priority the deployment of traffic management systems on all the transport modes in order to ensure a most efficient use of the infrastructure. Last but not least, there is a strong focus also on the deployment of new technologies, in particular with view to diminishing the negative impact on the environment and to ensure the safety and security of transport. This is reflected actually in the way the CEF budget are already pre-allocated, with 80 to 85% of the total budget for transport going to the horizontal priorities, the traffic management systems and the new technologies deployments, to pre-identified sections on the core network corridors and other important sections on the core network, which are mainly, again, missing links and bottlenecks on inland waterways and railways, in particular cross-border, as well as last mile connections to ports and airports, particularly as regards their connection to the railway infrastructure. Only 15 to 20% of the total budget will go to other projects on the core network that have not already been pre-identified in the annex to the CEF regulation, to projects on the comprehensive network, which is only up to 5% of the total CEF transport budget. There are also a limited amount of money that could be made available to support projects with third countries to ensure the connectivity, mainly at the border, between the infrastructure in a member state and a neighboring non-EU member state, as well as the funds for the financial instruments will come from this remaining 15 to 20% of the CEF transport budget.